The Soviets had taken the first major honors in the space race when Yuri Gagarin had become the first man to orbit Earth in 1961 in the Vostok 1 spacecraft. Gagarin and Komarov were in fact close friends, and Gagarin would have been on the board the Soyuz 1 if Komarov would have been unable to fly for some reason. Once docked, Komarov would transfer to Soyuz 2, and one of the two astronauts aboard her would take his place on Soyuz 1. None of these complex maneuvers had been attempted before. The Soviets were keen on this elaborate mission, partly to get one up on the Americans, and partly because 1967 marked the 50th anniversary of the Communist Revolution. As we shall see, this complicated mission did not go to plan. But who was the astronaut who was launched into space aboard Soyuz 1? Vladimir Mikhaylovich Komarov was born in Moscow in 1927 in humble circumstances. His father was a laborer, and the family was far from wealthy. Komarov started his schooling at the local elementary, and is said to have shown early promise in math, a talent that would serve him well later in life. But the boy's education was interrupted by the outbreak of World War II. Hostilities between Russia and Germany in 1941. Aged just 14, Komarov had to leave school and work on a farm. But then when he was 15, he got a place at the 1st Moscow Special Air Force School. This institution was soon evacuated to Siberia because of the war. Komarov graduated from the school and went on to Shukov Air Force School. In 1949, he qualified as a pilot and entered the Soviet Air Force with the rank of lieutenant. Komarov was then assigned to piloting fighter planes in 1950. He found the time to wed Valentina Yakovlevna Kisenyova. His Air Force career flourished, and he was promoted to chief pilot. He also studied engineering, becoming a senior engineer lieutenant. In 1959, Komarov took on the role of test pilot at the Soviet Union's Central Scientific Research Institute near Moscow, and later that year became an even greater honor. He was invited to join some 3,000 other pilots for consideration as an astronaut on the Soviet space program, and succeeded in getting into the final 20 hopefuls. Although in some ways he was perfectly qualified to be a cosmonaut, with his extensive flying experience and engineering know-how, various factors were against Komarov's selection. Since an age limit of 27 had been declared, he was a bit too old at 32, and he didn't meet the height and weight standards. Despite these shortcomings, Komarov was chosen for the astronaut training. Then came another setback, in 1916 when a minor operation put him out of action for 6 months. But Komarov was nothing if not determined, and he persuaded his superiors to readmit him to the training program. And on the 4th of October 1964, Komarov was selected for his first mission. With only 8 days to go before its launch, from the Baikonur base, he was to be the commander of the Vostok 1, flying with 2 crew members, Boris Yegorov and Konstantin Fyodorov. The flight was a success, and it was to be the first spaceflight to include more than 1 astronaut, and the first during which the crew did not wear spacesuits. After a little more than 24 hours in orbit, the Vostok 1 landed safely, and the crew were reported to be in a buoyant mood, although Komarov was exhausted. Nicely for him, he was promoted to colonel, awarded the prestigious honor of Lenin, and named a hero of the Soviet Union. Then Komarov and his old friend Gagarin were drafted into the next major Soviet space project, the Soyuz program. In 1967, Komarov was selected to be the pilot of the first Soyuz mission, a solo flight. Gagarin was named as his reserve. To be piloted for some reason, Komarov had to withdraw. The plan for the Soyuz 1 mission was ambitious to say the least. As we have seen, it involved not just one spacecraft, Soyuz 1, but also a second Soyuz 2. The plan was that Soyuz 2 would be launched soon after Soyuz 1, and the two could rendezvous in space and dock together. Both Komarov and Gagarin became increasingly concerned about what they saw as design defects in the Soyuz 1 craft, and Gagarin even wrote to the Soviet president, Leonid Brezhnev, about his reservations. It's been said that Komarov only agreed to pilot the Soyuz 1 because if he withdrew, Gagarin would have to take the job. Loyalty to his friend meant Komarov could not do this. In fact, Komarov was so anxious about the shortcomings of the Soyuz 1 aircraft that he stated that if he died during the mission, his funeral should be with an open coffin. That would demonstrate the danger that the authorities had put him in by insisting on going ahead with the flight. With these strong misgivings, but ever the professional Komarov prepared for his mission. The launch was on April the 23rd, 1967, and things had started to go wrong from the outset. The craft had 2 solar panels that were folded for launch. One of them failed to open properly, meaning that the ship did not have enough power to operate. Even the manual controls were compromised. It was now clear to ground control that the mission was going badly wrong. It was decided that Soyuz 2 would come to the rescue of Soyuz 1, attempting to repair the malfunctioning solar panel. But thunderstorms at Baikonur meant that the Soyuz 2 launch had to be cancelled. Komarov was on his own. After having orbited Earth 18 times, Komarov now ignited the retro rockets to start his descent. But there was another devastating equipment failure. The 2 parachutes designed to slow the craft down failed to deploy as intended. Komarov now hurtled to the Earth's surface at some 90 miles per hour, crashing to the ground. It burst into flames. Komarov's dark forebodings about the missions proved to be correct. Sadly, he had paid for the poor design of the spacecraft with his life.